I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Is there any public comment on tonight's agenda?
Currently not at this time.
All right, seeing none, I hand it over to Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. We have 5 things on the agenda tonight. First one being the refunding of the general obligation bonds Series A of 2017. We're revisiting this topic from the prior month, just to bring to the committee some updates in terms of where the rates are, estimated savings, and then also give our partners Garrett Moore from PFM and Lou Verdelli from Raymond James an opportunity to answer any questions the committee may have, as well as just solidify anything before we look into passing the resolutions parameters at the March school board business meeting. You'll see as attached the board docs as well as some of the handouts. The estimated savings initially was around $660,000, but the savings has now been modified based off of updated information to about $795,000. We still want to structure those savings over multiple years, not only just to help us for this year, but then look out in the next couple years as we move into some more of our bargaining unit contracts. At this time, I'll ask Garrett and Lou to come up, just give a quick presentation in terms of the handout, as well as the attachment on board docs, and any questions for the committee meeting or committee members.
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. At this point, you guys are experts when it comes to refinancing, so I'll be brief. If you look at the presentation I gave you, page 2, this is our interest rate chart that I know you all have seen before. I'm really just going to point to that bottom chart. And, you know, last year we priced the bonds and locked in the interest rates in October, locked in your savings. And if you look at where rates have gone since October, they've been bouncing around a lot, right? But largely, they're back to where they were in October. So again, good opportunity, or it was a good timing to lock rates in October when you did lock in their savings. Again, the market's been a little volatile over the past couple months, but largely speaking, we're in a very similar interest rate environment, at least as of today, that we were, you know, a few months ago. Page 3 is just a high-level summary and recap of the refinancing that you did last year. So last year, we refinanced the 2017 bonds, generated about $1.3 million of savings. It's a copy and paste plan from last time with this upcoming financing. We're targeting the 2017A bonds with this financing. They have a call date in, I believe, September or October of this year. And similar to last year, what's going to be up for your the board's consideration on March 20th is a parameters resolution. Again, as you might recall from last time, really all that does is authorize the parameters in which the financing team needs to operate within so that we can ultimately go to market, lock in those interest rates, and lock in those savings. Page 4 is just a summary of all of your outstanding debt. We have a yellow box drawn around the 17A bonds that we're contemplating refinancing with this issuance. Down at the bottom there, you'll see that call date, so the bonds can be called on August 15th of 2025. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the last page, which is the timeline. And as Mark had mentioned, page 5 is the estimated savings with this refinancing. So the plan is, as Mark had mentioned, to spread it out over 3 years. So, you know, about $330,000 in the first 2 years, and then the balance of the savings, whatever that may be, would fall in year 3. At least that's the current plan as of now. Page 6 is really just a summary. So obviously we're here tonight to give you all an update on this refinancing opportunity. As mentioned, on your March 20th regularly scheduled board meeting, for your consideration would be the parameters resolution. Again, for your consideration, that would be the authorizing motion for the financing team to then enter the market at the most opportune time and lock in those savings. Realistically, we would be looking to lock in the interest rates the week of mid-April, so tentatively scheduled for April 17th. And then about 30 days later on May 19th would be when settlement would occur. And again, the settlement is when the old bonds get refunded, you start paying debt service on the new bonds, and you start generating those savings.
So we can't lock in until April 17th?
Correct.
Okay.
We still have to go through our due diligence with Moody's. We'll get our credit rating. Obviously, I'll update the board through board notes. We expect to maintain the same credit rating, AAA, as we had literally 6 months ago. There shouldn't be too many updates in terms of the conversation with Moody's, but like Garrett said, April will be that earliest that we can lock in. Yeah.
And really, it's working.
Barring unforeseen circumstances, we're looking at about, the board's looking at about $800,000 in savings.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And going back to your point with the timing, it's really working backwards so that August 15th is the call date. We can legally refinance the bonds 90 days prior to that, which gets you to May 19th, and then, which is the earliest date in which we can settle on the bonds. Because of all the processes and paperwork that need filed with the state, that's normally about a 25 day process to get all the documents filed and get approvals from the state. So that puts us again at April 17th for the pricing. So you really have to work backwards from the call date, excuse me.
Any questions on the timeline or the next steps? Obviously, the next step, it will be the resolutions parameter in a couple of weeks at the board meeting, but this is more or less a copy and paste of the refinancing we just did a couple months ago.
And one caveat, as you might recall from last year, that parameters resolution that's going to be up for your consideration is going to be for an amount greater than what we actually anticipate borrowing. And again, that's because we need to give ourselves a little flexibility at the state level to be able to structure the bonds the way in which you want to achieve the savings.
So if there's no other questions, just would like committee's approval to take this out of committee and move this to the school board meeting. Okay, great.
I do have a really simple question, because
Absolutely.
so when we recognize the local effort savings over the 3 years,
Yes, ma'am.
where does all that money sit? Like that 700,
Well, that's realized in your
Yeah.
general fund.
The money doesn't go sit in a cash account. It's just decreased expenses that we need to budget for going forward. So if our budget for debt service payments is $10 million in that year, if we do this refinancing, that new budget line item becomes $9,700,000. It's not like it's cash in account, it's just less we need to plan for to spend.
Think about it like when you refinance your house. If you normally have a $1,500 a month mortgage payment and you refinance and it goes down to $1,300 a month, you don't necessarily realize all those savings over the life today. You just realize it over time via having to budget less and having to pay less monthly. Same concept applies here.
We generally apply it we recommend to the board applying it over a couple of years.
right,
So that we don't, because if you apply it all in 1 year, you run the risk of, if the next year there's a variable, like we need new roofs or something like that,
right.
you won't have that savings. So we spread it out over a couple of years.
Right, but I guess my question is, so year one, you're looking at 391,773, right? While you're seeing that, where's the other money physically sitting? Or where,
It's not that it's physically sitting somewhere. Instead of not spending $800,000 in year one, we're not spending $500,000, then we're not spending.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
okay,
Um,
I got it, thanks.
And it could, if the board chooses, it could be applied in 1 year.
No,
Yeah.
I
It's just in this uncertain
visualizing,
environment.
like, where.
Yeah, it's sort of abstract, right? Like, it's more of letting it flow to the bottom line, and you can apply it to the next year.
And the $330,000 for the purposes of this presentation has already been taken into account when we looked at our budget and our projected tax increase. That allowed us to go from 3.48 to 3.18. Chris, so if you think about it, where is that money going? That's where it's going. It's helping to decrease
Right.
the 3.48 to 3.18% tax increase. That's our realized number.
Gotcha, thank you.
We're taking out the yellow highlighted column from page 3, and then we're moving that to the end. Same length of time to pay it off, just different numbers for years 2, 3, and 4 in there. Okay.
Exactly. This is, as we call it, a high to lower funding. We're just going from one higher interest rate to a lower interest rate. We're not shortening the debt, we're not extending the debt, same final maturity, just going from a higher rate to a lower rate.
We're not adding any debt onto it, same principle. Okay, great. Thank you, Gavin.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda item is, in connection with the 25-26 school year budget, is the Senior Citizens Property Tax and Rent Rebate Program. This is an opportunity, one, to give a little bit of publicity to the program, as well as get the committee's approval to move this to the school board meeting on March 20th. The Colonial School District ended the 2023 property tax rebate program for senior citizens. This is the 5th year of the program. We actually were able to process 248 rebates for this prior year, up almost 90 rebate applications from the prior year. I think that was the driving factor of, one, Jess Lester's communications within her newsletters, and her and Kim Newell getting information out on the social medias, as well as we put a flyer in every tax duplicate mail bill that went out, so people not only saw their school tax invoice, but then they also saw the flyer. They were able to call my office, we walked them through the process. So very happy to see that not only just from a dollar standpoint, how much money we're able to help these participants, which was average of $381 per participant, but also the number of people, especially senior citizens, that we were able to enroll in the program. With the committee's approval, we'd like to continue that program for 25-26. It has already been budgeted for in 25-26 pending school board budget, but just want to make sure that we bring it up to the committee, get a little bit of advertisement to anybody that's listening, and then make sure we have approval to move it forward.
Can you repeat that number between last year and this year?
Yep.
How many?
So this year, this past year, we processed 248 rebate program applications. It's up about 90 from the prior year of 158.
Nice, okay. Thanks.
The average participant received $381.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So again, if committee's approval, we'd like to move that out of committee and then put that to the school board meeting. Great. Next up on the agenda is another revisit of a topic, the Act 91 tax credit program for Colonial School District for the 25-26 school year. The committee recalls we spoke about this a few months ago. This revolves providing a rebate to our volunteer community within the firefighter / fire police and EMS personnel. This again applies only to volunteers within the 3 boroughs, Conshohocken Borough, Plymouth Township, and White Marsh Township. We did poll a couple of the other school districts within the county. Of the remaining school districts, counting only 2 offer this program, so we'd like to become the 3rd. Dr. Christian and myself have spoken with the chiefs. There is very much an active interest in this, and this is something that we would like to push through at a committee. We have also planned for this appropriately in the 25-26 budget. This would be credit, just like we do the Senior Citizens Tax Rebate Program, where the volunteer individuals need to apply for it. The fire chiefs of each represented house or volunteer company, whether it's EMS, need to sign off on, participation. The participation level is 25% of active calls and trainings, and that would be signed off on by the chiefs. The credit that we are offering would be $500. When we did poll other school districts, Lower Merion offers a credit of $1,500, and Methacton offers a credit of $500. So for year 1, we're proposing a $500 credit to match that of Methacton School District. We can see how much interest there is, how much investment there is. From talking to the other 2 gentlemen who are the business managers there, there's about 55% of active members who are eligible for the program. So we applied that obviously to our budget, which is about $20,000, what we're based off of their active numbers. But ultimately, what we'd like to do is put a resolution forward on the July 20th school board meeting for our Act 91 tax credit program for the 25-26 school year.
Mark, one quick question, just some more confirmation. The application process is just a matter of them applying saying they want the credit. There's no other criteria outside of the chiefs signing off?
Correct. Outside of the chiefs signing off, that they attest to a certain percentage of active, enrollment. No, there's no other school district mandated.
I think we asked this question last time too, but if there are 2 volunteers within the same household, both are still eligible. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
But no more than 2, right?
It's a great question.
Because they do take high school kids on their,
I think we'd have to look at ultimately if there's a high school student that's volunteering, the taxes are the liability of that homeowner. So let's say that there is a
It would be one
a
per
Mr. and
household.
Mrs., yeah.
One per household?
In the initial year, I think we would recommend one per household,
Okay.
and then see, we could always come back to the board and say, hey, we had 38 applicants, and in 2 of the households, there were more than 1 volunteers, and if the board wanted to change the parameters, we could. But just because it's our first entrance into this, I think it would be safe to say 1 per household.
So 1 per parcel, okay.
Per
Sorry, yeah,
parcel.
correct, yeah, household essentially.
So, should that be listed in the regulations of the program?
Yeah, that'll be also be in the resolution as well,
Okay.
yeah. And then,
Chris Schwartz from Plymouth has led the initiative on behalf, and they've, we had 2 very good meetings with Chris, and they were appreciative of the board considering it, and secondly, they said they would also be good stewards in making sure that nobody would, I don't, abuse is too hard a word, take advantage of it by taking advantage of the intent of the, their whole goal is to get more volunteers, and I think that's a laudable goal.
Can we ask them to let us know, like, year to year, if it's helps get them more volunteers?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They clearly will. They approached us last year, right in the middle of budget season. It was a little too late to get it processed, and they offered to come to a board meeting, and I said, no, Mark and I advocate this, and we presented it to the board. It's just the timing of each budget season. So similar to our senior citizen incentive, this is a worthwhile endeavor.
Sounds great.
And we'll ask them to let us know. And they brought representatives from White Marsh and Conshohocken too. Joe was part of the meeting, Tim and Mark and I, and we all, we're in favor of it.
Great.
okay, great, thank you. Second to last item on my list is the 2025-2026 budget development update. We still are maintaining a 3.1% increase with using $1 million of fund balance. That would bring our tax rate to a new effective rate of 26.495 mils. But a couple of things I wanted to go over with the committee is Governor Shapiro's budget address. I'm going to go over some of the highlights of it real quick, but obviously the presentation is on board docs for your review. Total operating budget for Pennsylvania for the upcoming 25-26 school year is about $133 billion. Of that, $51 billion is allotted to the general fund. Within that general fund, it includes a 6.4% increase year-over-year budget, and Governor Shapiro is proposing holding a line all tax revenues, or all tax lines. His themes for this upcoming budget mirror very similar to prior year, investing in children, students, and educators, making Pennsylvania a leader in economic development, and then so on and so on. The education, which obviously is our biggest concern and our biggest interest, the appropriations for the 25-26 year are as reported here. Biggest couple takeaways is that, not similar to prior year, the money that he's putting in the basic education funding formula is only about $75 million. We spoke about this previously, but now we got a chance to actually look at his numbers. A lot of the money that they're putting into is in the tax equity or the adequacy supplement that some of our not so fortunate school districts are challenged with their revenue streams. But for the purposes of his 25-26 school year, $75 million more in basic education funding, only $40 million in special education funding itself, and you'll see $526 million increase in the adequacy and tax equity investment. There's additional dollars that he's allocating towards school food services, early education, pre-K, grants in connection with facilities improvements, and then a litany of other school grants that we always are looking to take advantage of. Other policies that he is proposing, moving the federal minimum, or moving the minimum wage to $15 from $7.25. What's not in his budget: PlanCon funding, which is something that's really not a surprise to anybody, minimum teacher salary levels, increases in earned income tax credits, as well as cyber charter reimbursements. If the committee recalls, last year we were happily surprised to see $150,000 to help offset our costs as cyber charter schools. However, for the current year, he has not had that money in the proposal. This is just the first look at his proposal. We do have some of those dollars budgeted, about $150,000. It's not a lot to move the needle, but it is a line item we need to be cognizant of over the next few months. Where is he trying to get? Where is he going to be generating all this money? Where is he going to be looking to fund these programs outside of increasing tax rates? Well, one, he's trying to legalize gaming terminal tax expansion. These are the slot machines you might see at casinos, as well as some of putting, I guess, like slot machines in airports or other areas. The biggest ticket item on here, though, is legalizing adult use marijuana, in which he believes would yield about $536 million, and then increasing a corporate net income tax. Basic education. Corporate net income tax. It's a corporate tax. Yeah. Basic education, like I said, only a $75 million increase year over year for basic education formula. You can see this is just a chart of where basic education funding formula really stands right now. We're at about the tune of $8 billion goes in to the what's called a hold harmless effect. Every year, every school district is measured, and then their baseline is capped at that amount. So for the purpose of this conversation, $8 billion is always going to be guaranteed to be awarded to school districts. It's the additional money that he puts into the formula that becomes variable. What does this do for Colonial School District? Colonial School District is looking at only a $73,000 increase in basic education funding formula, additional revenues next year. We're not taking that into account into our budget, one, because it's just his proposed budget. $73,000 doesn't really move the needle for us. We'll be mindful of that going forward. Special education funding, compared to basic education funding, special education funding is only to the tune of about $1.5 billion. It's only a $37 million increase year over year when you look at what he's proposing for the 25-26 school year. And Colonial School District share increasing in special education funding is $27,089. The most interesting slide here is when you look at what are the expenditures compared to what is the state and federal subsidy monies. You can see that for the 25-26 projected special education expenditures are about $6.4 billion, while revenues from subsidy from federal and state is only about $1.4 billion. So ultimately, school districts are charged with finding a new revenue stream, whether that's the local taxes through current real estate taxes, earned income taxes, or any type of revenue stream to bridge that gap. That's unfortunately just the truth in nature and where we are with special education funding compared to expenditures. Our Ready to Learn block grant is when we spoke about the adequacy and tax equity. You can see that the total amount is $1.3 billion, up about $500 million from the prior year. The adequacy tax equity supplements are frozen from prior year, but then added on to in the 1 year going forward. And you can see Colonial School District only receives $169,000 out of that new additional almost $550 million additional money. Again, while it's great that school districts like Norristown and Pottstown get this additional adequacy and supplement, these are just the challenges that Colonial School District is facing, where we are frozen at $169,000. Just to give the committee ideas where we are with Governor Shapiro. What happened to the cyber charter reimbursement? Honestly, we're all still kind of shaking our heads on that one. We'll work with PASBO over the next few months to see what type of insights that they can provide, but it's just not a line item that he budgeted for. He allocated $100 million last year in relief for school districts, and that's just not a line item. We're hoping for some type of cyber charter school reform. However, as the committee recalls, his last proposal, he did ask for some type of reform for cyber charter, but it fell within the Senate Appropriations Committee and never made it out. We don't expect there again to be any other type of reform. We're hoping for an appropriation line item of $100 million, but again, we don't have enough of an 8-ball to kind of see where we're going to be ending up with that. Safety and security is another line item, $110 million into physical and mental health grants. As Mr. Lally has spoken to and what we've spoken to in the past, We always look to go after these grants, and PCCD with Tim McDonald, we've always been fortunate. This is where we've looked to upgrade our cameras through Tim McDonald and his security department, as well as Karen Burks, bringing in counselors for Lakeside and helping to fund some of those costs. So we'll make sure we're actively, pursuing those, but $100 million doesn't go as far as what we'd like. Educator recruitment and retention, Mrs. O'Reilly has spoken this before through our FIA grants. The FIA grant allows student teachers to come in from universities such as Westchester, Delaware, and some of the other local universities to work with Colonial School District. Right now, and Mrs. O'Reilly can check me on this one, I believe we have 5 student teachers that are being awarded $10,000 a semester, which is a great benefit for them. They get the education as well as they get some earnings on that. And that is funded through a grant through FIA, through the Commonwealth to Colonial School District. It acts as a pass-through. There is no cost to us, so it's great to see that they're continuing that and continuing that pipeline of teachers. Our cooperating teachers, our employees, they receive $2,500 as a stipend. That is paid from the cooperating university, whether it's Westchester, Delaware, Bloomsburg, etc. It's not a cost to the district. We're just in charge of administering it and facilitating those applications. But it's great to see that they're continuing that. Food service.
Mark, quick question for
Yes.
Michelle, you might know. Do you know if they, for this, I remember last year when they first launched it, it was like they put the application out, it was like super quick, like is it still the same process? Is it just like applications going to go out and then it's like first come, first serve, and then we're pulling it?
It's my understanding that it will be the same.
Yeah.
If you remember when they first started the program, they wanted to put a limit on the number of student teachers that could participate, but then they opened it up and said anyone who wanted to apply could be eligible. Yes.
And then the last highlight of Governor Shapiro's proposed budget is for the food service department. They are proposing to continue the universal free breakfast for all Pennsylvania students, regardless of income thresholds. And they will continue to cover providing free lunches to reduced price eligible students for the 25-26 school year. So these are some of the highlights of Governor Shapiro's. The effect it has on Colonial School District is minimal, but I just wanted to kind of, educate the committee on the highlights of what's coming out of the Commonwealth. Any questions in terms of Governor Shapiro?
Yeah, so just like out of curiosity, is there a percentage that our state gets from federal funding for food and services and nutrition? Or is it, this is just solely
Nope,
Pennsylvania?
there is a pass-through effect. It does come down from the federal government through to the state for a portion of it. There is a federal subsidy, which does outweigh the state subsidy. But I don't know what the breakdown is off the top of my head. I know it's much more outweighed with a federal subsidy.
Okay.
So the federal subsidy goes away.
There's no indications that I've seen that that program is in jeopardy. Okay. Just to revisit our 25-26 presentation, like I said, not too much in terms of updates. We are still at the 3.18%. We are still looking to use $1 million. Our new initiatives for the following school year include our interactive TVs, our expansion of Zero Eyes, our Firefighter Act 91 program, our senior citizens rebate program, as well as the expansion of our Chromebooks from the kindergarten and first grade students, which are replacing our iPads. The presentation is on board docs again. It is very similar to the prior. I'm just re-emphasizing the fact that we are still at 3.18%, but obviously we have another month to do any additional analysis. What we're looking at again is for April committee meeting, coming out of the committee meeting with a final proposed budget, with final proposed budget being approved at the April meeting. Again, that doesn't mean that we can't change it in May if additional information comes to light, but we just need to make sure we get that final proposed out so it sits for the required at least minimum 30 days. And then in June, we're looking to ratify the 25-26 budget.
And how are we looking with kindergarten enrollment this year versus last year?
It's sitting around, it's ahead of last year, but I think that's more attributed to our communication.
And the online piece?
Correct. So last week, we were about 150 kindergartners, so we were ahead of the year before, but I based that on the communication piece. So I think we're going to be in the 400 to 420 range. The biggest increase in this year's budget from a personnel standpoint is the 110 kids moving from third grade to fourth grade. And you have to remember, the certifications are K to 4 and then 4 to 8. So there's a chance that we budgeted 4 positions. 110 kids is 4 classrooms in fourth grade. Pretty simple. If kindergarten's like 375 to 400, we could absorb a position. We just have to look at the certifications to make sure people can move to 4th and 5th grade. And then CES administration, Rose and Mike, are, when they interview candidates, are making sure they're certified 4th through 8th, so they can move, because what's likely going to happen is 4 new positions this year, and then in CES remain stagnant for a year, and 2 people will have to move up to 5th grade. Odd numbers work very poorly in the 4-5 building. So we have 18 and 18 sections right now. 17 and 19 is like a split team, and that's not the best for kids. So I think the reality is going to be we may be able to absorb 1 position, likely at Plymouth, because right now they have 7 kindergartens, 7 first, 7 second, and 8 third. So if that backup, if kindergarten is only 7, we have an extra position there, and we would just shift that up to CES, provided we have the right cert. The reality is that if you were looking for some savings, while it would be savings, it's not a great practice when it's 1 or 2 positions, because we could always use extra reading, extra math, extra anything interventionist, and you never know what the next kindergarten is going to be. If I could come to the board and say we have 5 or 6 positions we could save, then I would do that. But that makes a dent in the budget. 1 position does not. And I don't say that lightly. I just say that, but the reality is you don't want to dig a hole and then the next year have to replace 2 positions. So.
Yeah. And I don't want to get us off track, but just in terms of specialists, expressive arts,
Yep.
special education, ELD.
Great question.
You're also able to cover from.
We're gonna need a half of a music teacher to cover all of that, to make sure we have all the specialists covered. And so Rosemary and I have been working with the CES administration on that since about a month ago. And so ELD definitely covered, all the special areas covered, but we will need, because music is our most popular, as it should be, not elective, but special area. So we'll probably need a half position on that, which we will be able to cover through attrition, through retirements, because we have about 7 or 8 retirements. And all the credit goes to Rose and Rosemary, because they presented the schedule to me, and I said, explain it to me like I'm in 8th grade, and they did. And then I said, explain it to me like I'm in 4th grade, and they did, and I understood it. So they know the schedule better than anybody. Elementary principals, they got it covered. They're thinking way ahead of me.
So just out of curiosity, I don't remember how long ago the certifications changed, where it used to be K to 5 or
Yeah.
even K to 8. How
I would
many-
time it right with the decrease in teachers. That's usually how it works.
Right.
We make it more difficult to hire
How
people.
many of our K to 5s or are dual, like can go across K to 5 compared to overall teaching in the district? Like, would you say like 20%, 50%?
We'd have to do an analysis.
We'd
So
have to look, Chris.
is it- So when you graduate with an elementary degree and you go for, you take your certification
Mhm.
exams, can you take for both K to 3 and then, or K to 4 and 5 to 8, or you only can do 1?
You'd have to sit for 2 different exams. So it's pre-K to 4. There's also an add-on cert that's 4-5 that you could do, or 5-6. So you could do those 2 certs and be covered for anything up through our 4-5 building. But they do separate them out. But you can sit for more than 1 certification.
And is there a cost to that, sitting
Yes.
for that? Would that be something that we might consider for kids that like student teach or whatever? If they're-
We have done it.
Oh, yeah?
If we have a need,
Like-
we've supported them through the praxis.
Okay.
That's the name of the exam.
Right, I forgot, but, yeah, I'm just curious, because it's not that much money, maybe that would help us. in the
Absolutely, it's an
long run.
incentive to hire. If we've had a really strong employee who's done well, we've sponsored them through the exam because it benefits us to keep somebody who knows our systems, knows our schools, and is a familiar face. Absolutely.
And then, are those
And the
exams-
board did authorize us to post the openings that we currently have, and the anticipated openings, so we're gonna be out in front of this.
Okay. And are those practice exams only offered like one time during the year, or is it like any?
Many times.
You can sign up for one, you have to take a break, and then you can sign up for another, but multiple times.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Mark, I have a quick question. The tax, the 10%?
Yep.
Is there, I don't remember that. Can you quantify the
Yeah.
median assessment is 154.5,
Mhm.
tax bill for that assessment is 3968?
Mhm.
Right.
If you change the millage from whatever, 26 to 25 or 27, how does that, what's that formula? Is that possible?
So you're going, right now, our current mills are at 25.678 in that top left corner.
Yes.
And then we're taking that multiplied by 3.18% to come up with 26,495. What, then you're basically taking that 3968.66 times 1.318.
Okay, all right. So that 3968 would go to
42,
4094,
yeah.
right?
Sorry, unless I got Excel in front of me, I'm not the best there. 3968. Yeah, 4094. Yeah.
All right.
Now, I know that, obviously the $126 increase on a median assessment is that value. What I would suggest, and if anybody can listen, is that you have your senior citizens tax rebate program. So if you have individuals that are widower over 55, if you're over 65 with an aggregate AGI of 45,000 or less, apply to our program. That'll help offset, obviously, that $126. Okay. Final item on my agenda is our 2024-25 budget comparison for February. Local revenues remain strong, 87% collected of our budget of $158,174,694. So actual revenues collected of $137,613,176. Again, what we've talked about in prior committee meetings is the effect of our transfer tax revenue, which has remained strong, about $2.9 million compared to last year's $1.1 million. Notable transactions within Conshohocken down along the riverfront, apartment complexes are really driving that for the current 24-25 school year. Current real estate taxes, as well as earned income taxes, amusement tax, delinquent taxes, all remaining strong comparable to prior year, as well as within budget expectations. From a revenue standpoint, like I said, 87% collected on budget and very consistent and strong compared to prior year. Wages and benefits from an actual to budget line item, very comparable and within expectations. Obviously, we look at our bargaining unit contracts as well as our benefit projections for those two line items. I'm going to skip object 300 for purposes right now, just to move over to the remaining line items. Our 400 property services, which is our repairs again to our Chromebooks. Again, I give a lot of credit to Mr. Bogley and his technology team working on not just ensuring their safety with the new cases, but then also the work that they do with our Best Buy makeshift lab here. Chad Brenner and Caleb work, they spend a lot of time tinkering away, making repairs to all of our Chromebook screens. Our supplies line item, again, within budget expectations. We did replace a number of desktops for teachers at the high school and the middle school. Our 700 item, you can see it did tick up in comparison to prior year, or prior month, if you were to look at our prior year analysis. Our budget is about $840,000. We did buy the floor scrubbers at the beginning of the school year, as well as access points to provide better internet throughout the area. But then this past month, we approved budget expenditures for new pole vault equipment over at the high school. The National
Federation of High School Sports.
Thank you, Mr. Lally, came out with new regulations over the size of the pads that need to ensure the safety of the students when they go up on the pole vault and they come back down. Regulations changed by about 8 inches on the left side and the right side, so obviously we need to adhere to those. And Mr. Brett's worked with our vendors to make sure we have that ordered and on the way for this upcoming season. The only other additional budgeted line item that was purchased was a new maintenance van to make sure our facility personnel can get between buildings. Interest payments and transfers to the athletic fund as well as debt service are continuing as budgeted. Total expenditures are about $94 million on a $158 million budget, so about 59.55% of our budget has been already allocated in terms of an expenditure standpoint. Our 300 line item is our professional services line item. Is our one-to-one aides. This will be something you've heard me talk about on numerous committee meetings, but with the requirements as mandated through our IEPs and special education settlement agreements, obviously we're mandated by what comes out of those departments. We're always looking to make sure we're getting as much dollar value we can out of our contracted aides with some of our vendors, but we are seeing a little bit of a strain on that line item right now in terms of just settlement agreements and just mandated requirements for special education. This is why I was kind of making it such a point when we look at what's coming out of the Commonwealth or Governor Shapiro or any political group that's up there. We have $1.4 billion in subsidy payments for $6 billion in expenditures. There's quite an unevenness there. Hopefully, as they get through the budget process, they can start allocating more money out. But for right now, it's the responsibility of not just our school district, but every school district to invest that money. So we are seeing a little bit of strain on that. Overall, like I said, 59.55% of expenditures on budgeted actual or budgeted line items. And then just our very templated presentation in terms of revenues, what we previously talked about, our wages all the way through down to our other use of funds over here on our expenditure comparison. You can see, like we talked about, our our property services, our investment in our Chromebook program is yielding results to the tune of a little more than $400,000. And our other objects, the $555,000 in savings, attributable to that refinancing that we did, which has taken effect now. So that's great to see that those line items providing support, which obviously then is counterbalanced by our investment in our 300 object for professional services. Overall, our instructional line item looks great. 57.10% of every dollar we spend goes into the students, goes to our instructional purposes. So that's always great to see. And then this is just a carve out. Historically, our page 1 document has always been a little hard on the eyes, and with me getting older, I can't see as well anymore. So I just carved out the definitions of each one of those objects. Hopefully it helps everybody as much as it helps me. Any questions on 24-25 budget expenditures?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter, that concludes my agenda for tonight.
Thank you. Any public comments?
Currently not.
Any board comments?
Thank you.
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Good work.
Thank you.
I can.
Sharon, you need 2 more meetings.
What are we doing next? Facilities?
She's interested in just attending
Sorry, I hope you didn't mind.
if we went 3-3, in terms of what would it do to it, like a tax bill?
No. What would it do to, like, the budget? Like,
It would provide us $212,000 more.
Not chocolate chip, huh?
I know,
No,
it's just
we don't
like.
raise
I like oatmeal
I do
raisin,
too.
but
Right, like 120.
it was not what I was
What's the difference
expecting when I
between
put it in my
3.1 and
mouth.
I don't like
Two.
chocolate,
Yeah,
and I
$2.
took one of those cans. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I don't like it.
It gets material when you
I like
look
them.
at the assessed value on
I
our.
definitely thought it was chocolate chip.
Okay.
So when you look at our assessment breakdown,
That's the one you can't see.
and I think it was on another agenda,
It is.
but the type of assessed parcel,
I'm like,
we see obviously higher tax rates on the commercial properties when you're looking at assessed value of $400,000.
Yeah, okay.
That's when it becomes
how did this
material.
even happen?
So
Like, I just think it was like really on the board.
I was punching.
But I guess if you're.
You didn't change it.
3-3,
I just got everything out, cleaned it up.
it's not gonna move the needle
enough.
enough. Maybe sizable. Like you go from the 3.8 to a 3.7.
I remember Sue asking me that question.
$800,000.
How old are you?
I mean, gave him the sound
But
system.
I was super excited.
Nothing.
No. 39, 24.
Yeah.
they go after the assessment value.
No problem.
When you guys go to law, you're gonna hear, you're raising my taxes 3.9%.
3 more.
And that's what they don't say. Right, they just,
I'm talking about 337, 147. I'm talking, hey, thank you for your extra $20 so much in 12 months. I'm asking for an extra $4.50. You know.
but that's not what they say. They see
Silence.
percentage.
Yeah.
School in the school district raising 4%.
It's like a baby.
Is it mental?
I said it to Kaplan.
Works great.
That's what I mean.
You weren't using the fund balance.
Why are you not feeling well?
3.18% looks a lot better.
Yeah, it looks a lot better. But, you know,
I keep fighting that thought.
like kindergarten, I had no interest.
Maybe I'll use one of them 25 vacation days that I have that I haven't used.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I think what we need to allow you to do is over the next year and a half, is look at those schools.
There's not going to be that many this year. So I started looking at it.
Like, you know, so 3 would give us
And you were like, let me go.
about 0. 20 grand I'd shut up.
Oh, I see.
All right, not that's yeah, mine's
Still,
I might bring just, you
amount.
know,
Sure, if I took care of my
talking literally
16.
Not 15 hours a month, $15 a day, literally, $1.10 per month.
8 weeks. Take 2 of them.
I get it, like, there's,
There's going to be something that I won't be able to take. Just because of
Doesn't the 4th of July fall on Friday?
but once, you know.
Saves me money.
From negotiations.
Don't take those.
Take the Thursday.
No, I don't.
All right, are we ready? Sorry.
No problem.
Whoops, is that me?
Gotcha.
I was just enjoying my cookie for a minute.
I can do it. I can do
All
it.
right.
I agree.
I am quick and good
All
news.
right.
What it is.
Someone bring me to order. That's a hard challenge, but go for it.
It's Monday, March 3rd. I'll call the facilities meeting to order. Is there any public comment on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, I will turn it over to Mr. Lally.
Thank you very much. First item tonight is the CES project. Again, just another brief update. Very happy with the progress. Some good, bullet points for everyone is the general contractors cleaners will be in the first floor area this Wednesday. So they will start cleaning the administration area for the CES administration team. We will start, then there'll be waxing of the terrazzo floor in that first floor section over the weekend. Furniture delivery comes Monday on the 10th for the entire first floor, so that's the administration and all the first floor classrooms. Furniture will be installed over the next 2 weeks then in that area. We have on the 31st of March, which is a holiday for staff and students, we're going to go for our temporary certificate of occupancy with the township so we can ring bells, check loudspeakers, and all the life safety devices. So we'll have that on the 31st. And after several meetings with Ms. Rock again today, it looks like they'll start moving things down probably on that Tuesday. So we're moving some things from upstairs down now and using some classrooms that won't be used right away, just as storage spaces, and we're just protecting the floor. The other good news is when we're done, I'll send everybody a picture. We have the boardroom completely cleared out and cleaned. And so it's just basically trying to give Mr. Cahill and his team, his crew, as much time as they can with the hopes that we can have a May meeting back in the regular boardroom.
We don't love this space.
No pressure, Bob.
I really love this place.
It's nice because you just have better sound and the audience can see the screen even more.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said in the boardroom, it's a better sound system and then our
Oh,
audience
yeah,
can see
yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak, Bob's more the expert, but
But we don't mind this space, it's beautiful.
no, yeah.
We have somebody coming in on Wednesday, and they're going to redo the room, the wiring, the microphones, and the TVs, try to get it, a little bit more current for you guys.
That's awesome.
So Wednesday they come out, and then work begins shortly.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, in them same 2 weeks, there'll also be technology and things like that I'll be working on getting installed and getting down there. And again, to have the administration and the few teachers that come down with that second floor move to the first floor in place completely, obviously before at least a week, if not more, before testing starts. So they won't have to make that transition after spring break to start testing in a new area. Outside of that, I mean, looking for some more good weather so we can finish some things outside. We had a couple teaser days there, but hopefully we'll get back to some warmer weather where we can finish up the front entrance and then the side entrance where there's a ramp over there and there's a ramp out front too. And then the summer's going to be busy. It's going to, there'll still be challenges, but we're in a pretty good spot. So, any questions?
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The second item on the agenda is, so we talked about, and the board approved the Phase 1 roofing project, which was the White Marsh Elementary, Ridge Park Elementary kindergarten wings, which I think we built in like 2002. I was here for them when they started and finished. So they're part of this actual bid that you're looking at, and so is portions of the high school around Gym North, the locker room area, and the classrooms that go into the inner courtyard right behind the gym. So we did this is our first bid where we did it through CoStars. So it actually allows us to pick 3 roofers that we've worked with and we've had good experiences with and let them compete against each other. So we're very happy with the bids and the closeness of the bids, and what I would like the board to do is, I'd like to recommend to the board that we approve Jotten Roofing for White Marsh and Ridge Park Elementary, and they will be for a total of combined $785,518, and then approve Munn Roofing for Plymouth White Marsh High School, that portion, for $1,282,000. So we had them bid each project separately and not all 3 together, just so we could kind of go à la carte with it and pick the lowest number. So we budgeted $2,225,000. So we're roughly around $155,000, $157,000, somewhere in there, below budget. So we were happy with it. Was competitive. It's 3 good vendors. It's good experience. Munn did the roofing here. The one vendor that actually didn't get it, which was Procom, they've done tons of roofing in the district and also done repairs, and Jotten has done work down at the high school during that process too. So we're familiar with all 3 vendors. So with the board's approval, I would just like to put that for the, I'm sorry.
Jeremy had a
Sorry.
question.
I'm sorry.
Are we allowed to, would Munn be willing to come down for all, can you negotiate or no?
Because it's CoStars, I could try. I can try, because it's not like your typical bid. So let me try and vet that through. If you're okay, Dr. Christian, I'll vet that through.
We should probably double check with the solicitor on that.
Yeah.
You know, I also want to follow the rule, I'm just saying like
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're okay, I'll check with Ellen Enders and just make sure it's okay.
They're $300 over,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's the benefit of having two different contractors was something that I really, I spoke with Mark and Dr. Christian about, because we're ending school the 14th, kind of know when we're starting early. So I'm just being a little bit skeptical. I kind of enjoyed the fact that it went to two different vendors. I thought that benefits the district in getting it done in a timely way. Everybody's going to say yes because they don't want the job, and come August 27th when the kids are coming back, I don't want roofers on.
It could result in a requirement to rebid the project.
I know, I mean, like,
with a different
you know,
specification.
We're gonna say $5,000, it's not worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're gonna save 150.
If we were unfamiliar with the vendors or had bad references, it would, or we don't feel they bid to spec, it would be worth doing. But because we know all of them and it was competitive and the overall total is under what we expected, it's better to lock it in at this point.
All right.
You rebid in April, you're looking at fewer bids probably.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think I spoke to the board earlier, and because we're going to, the last item on the agenda will be the kind of talking about the next couple pieces over the next couple months of the roofing project district-wide. But in that, one of the key things will be, as Dr. Christian mentioned, the timing of the bid. A lot of the roofers like to get their summer work schedule in December, January. We pushed to February on this, but that's where your best competitive numbers are going to come from, because they're all looking for their summer work in those months.
Yeah, if you bid in April and May, it's going to be higher and it won't get done until the fall.
Right.
We're looking for the least disturbance to the instructional program too.
Sorry, Jeremy, I didn't see it.
No, I'm good.
J-O-T-T, is it A-M?
I couldn't hear you.
John?
J-O-T-T.
Jotton.
It says, I know, but I'm Googling, and it said A, I just want to make sure I'm doing the right one.
What do you do?
J-O-T-T-A.
She's Googling.
Yeah.
Oh, Googling, I'm not sure.
Is it spelled wrong on there?
Probably AM.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm.
It's Jotton, I know. I can send you the information.
I just want to make sure I'm the right one.
Okay.
They're a Delran?
I believe so.
Okay.
Is there any questions on the actual bid?
If the board remembers that Joe and Mark presented the immediate need in year one and then what we need over the next several years, and very similar to what we do with technology, what we do with major capital expenses, spread them out over 5, 6, 7 years so we avoid those big bumps and having to replace 4 or 5 roofs in 1 year. And so it smooths out the curve and prevents, especially in an active environment, it prevents that big bump.
Thanks.
And the reality is, it's just, those roofs were replaced 20, 25 years ago, and they're at end of life.
Yeah, and again, they're performing, so that's also a good thing for us. That's given us the ability, to Dr. Christian's point, to kind of spread it out again. So obviously, some issues, again, in budgeting for potential repairs, but overall, it's the right thing to do. You can see the repair numbers going up.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good. Yep.
So the last item on the agenda was just what I kind of leaped into, which was in the ensuing months, we're going to sit down. I have a prioritized list of what I believe needs to be next that I have to sit down and review with Dr. Christian and Mark, and then figure out what's best for the district, obviously funding-wise, that meets that priority list. So the goal would be to, continue to give the board as much information, get a plan together with the three of us, and then share it with the board for approval and see what would be what we're sending out to bid or looking to approve this time next year for next summer. So that would just be the potential of going, again, to Dr. Christian's point, one building or one priority, I should say, at a time.
These aren't items that weren't on the 5-year plan. They were on the 5-year plan, and it's just making sure that they're staying in the same order.
Well, I think you, on the 5-year plan, you wanted to show the roofing, right?
We have our 5-year capital improvement plan. As an addendum to that, Mr. O'Lally carved out his roofing schedule. So we took the 5-year capital plan less roofing, and then we look at the roofing as its own separate project, as its own separate replacement schedule. I think Joe was able to work with some of our contractors and get it to like a 6-year stretch out. You know, this is obviously, you know, we're looking into phase 1, and then, you know, we'll start developing the subsequent years from there. This is why part of that refinancing of the bonds, we want to do it over multiple years, so then it allows, you know, some potential funds for Joe's roofing project, or if we need to take on new debt to pay for the projects, we want to make sure we kind of allocate that out to give him some leeway.
Thank you.
We try to put things in a couple of different buckets. One of the buckets is needs. So we know we needed new generators in all the schools. And so that's been accomplished, and that was with a year lead time. We need new roofs over the next several years. The wants are plentiful. We have a great teaching staff and administrative staff, and they have grandiose ideas of what we want to have. And they're wonderful things. And some of those we can do right away, and some of those we need to phase in over time. But you have to go with the primary reinforcers first. Need power, need roofs, need heat, need AC. This past weekend, on Saturday, I was in Lancaster, PA, and I got a text from Joe. He was at the high school that was without power because we had weekend events, and he's there. He's like, hey, we're without power at the high school, without power at Plymouth, but I'll let you know where we're at. So we're in really good hands. We have a director of operations who treats our 7 schools like they're his home. And he tells me, Mark, when his home is without power. So, and then he let us know Sunday morning, very early Sunday morning, that they had power.
I did spare them the 3:30 call.
Yeah, you did.
I figured there's no school Sunday. They wouldn't have appreciated it. It was like 3:33, my phone rang, and they were like, hey, power's back, it's been restored. Thinking, nah, don't text it.
And I'll tell the board, Joe would want to do all these projects in the next 2 years. And Mark and I say we have to spread them out. So it's a happy disagreement, and he gets it. So, you know, I think we're in really good shape. Got to get the roofs done, and especially at our elementary schools, which are our older buildings right now. They have newer HVAC. Previous boards approved all the HVAC that was done in the past 7-8 years. So this will just get those buildings set probably for the next 20 years.
Oh yeah, there's a 25-year warranty on them, so we're going to go for another 25 years.
Yeah, and the middle school and high school are already renovated, so we're, over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll be in really good shape. What's that? Well, if a lot of kids show up, then that's another issue. Then the Joe Valley Early Literacy Center opens up.
Get out of here.
And pre-K.
Did the generators kick in?
The generator?
Over the weekend, did the generators?
Yeah.
kick in?
Yeah. Everything's in the new generators, as Dr. Christian said, in the elementary schools are all working well. And unfortunately or fortunately, we were able to test them through actual power outages. So, because on all the elementary schools with the new generators, like the boilers weren't on those old generators. So on the new ones, we added some equipment to it, some kitchen equipment to make sure that Lori and food service don't lose any product, and then we added the boilers. Obviously just boilers because you don't really need air conditioning, but if it gets real cold and we have to, hold children, we want to make sure the building stays warm.
The worst time for any director of operations is this week, Sunday through Tuesday. So it was 19 degrees last night, 30 degrees today, and 56 tomorrow.
Yes.
So that, in a building this size, it's not like just flicking a switch. Oh, we go from heat to air, or air to heat. It's not that simple.
Yeah, it's there's definitely a few dartboards with my face on it, but I'm surviving.
240,000
Comes with the
square
territory.
feet. We'll cut your break for 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, thanks.
My high school.
The first 200,000, you're responsible.
Yeah, right.
My high school had coal heat when we were there. Cold.
Cold feet?
Cold.
Cold, oh, cold.
Shovel.
I thought you were still talking about the meeting when she
No,
said
no, no,
stores
no,
cold
no, they had
feet.
to shovel the
Cold, yeah.
And when that union went on strike, we were one of the few schools that shut down in the
Oh,
city.
wow.
So that technically, we didn't lose any days because the district was open, but it was nice.
Yeah. The old middle school had its original incinerator for trash in it still.
Wow.
We took that down. There was still an incinerator in there for trash, so. If there's no more questions, that's the last item on the agenda.
Awesome.
Anybody else? Any public comment?
Currently none at this time.
All right, seeing none, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
HR?
Right into it, It's Monday, March 3rd, and this is our HR committee meeting. We would like to call this meeting to order. Any public comment on the agenda?
Currently none at this time.
All right. Michelle?
Thank you, Mrs. Plant. Tonight I wanted to talk to everyone about employee recognition program. The idea would be to implement this program going into the 25-26 school year. And I wanted to share with you that some of the things that we're already doing recognizing our employees include our employee wellness. And I've given you an outline of what we've done each year to include physical and biometric screenings and giving employees an Amazon gift card for participating in the 21-22 school year. In 22-23, we did a 6-week step challenge for employees who participated. They were eligible to enter into a drawing, and we randomly chose 2 employees that participated, and they received Apple Watches. In 23-24, employees who attended the Health Advocate Seminar on stress and anxiety, we offered them a $20 Amazon gift card for attending, and all staff in the 23-24 school year district-wide were given a Colonial School District water bottle to promote healthy lifestyles. Currently, for the 24-25 school year, our healthcare consortium is reviewing suggestions that we gave them already for wellness ideas. They do have to approve those funds, and so that will be coming out soon this spring. There's also the Colonial Chat newsletter. You've probably seen that Jess Lester puts out a Colonial Chat newsletter, and I wanted to bring to your attention that included in that is an HR section that spotlights our employees to create a stronger sense of connection, appreciation, and belonging. We highlight when our biannual retirement seminars are taking place, healthcare updates, and feature employees if they wish to share information about marriages, new babies, and recently received rewards that they might receive. Some suggestions that Mrs. Plant and I had discussed in advance of tonight's meeting included peer nominations for cultural champions. And the idea would be that employees would nominate colleagues who embody the district's culture and encourage culture-driven behaviors and encourage and celebrate across district-wide. Winners would receive a prize or additional perks that we would determine would be appropriate. Also, handwritten thank you notes, and the idea behind that one would be that administrators and supervisors would send out handwritten notes to valued employees, including personal notes to them for a job well done, gratitude for their hard work, and boosting morale. Another idea that we discussed was leadership lunches. Employees would be randomly selected to receive a leadership lunch with a supervisor, principal, cabinet member, or the superintendent.
No board member?
We could do board members, absolutely. We could do board members.
Just teasing, Michelle, you don't have.
Oh, you don't want to be included?
No.
Okay. And then another suggestion was an all-food day. That would be board and cabinet level members would visit buildings, departments, and schools to offer healthy snacks and or ice cream. This could be done biannually or annually. Questions about that or other suggestions that you would want us to consider?
So just thank you first for bringing this up.
Of course.
For bringing it up and for talking about it. So love the ideas. I'm just gonna like throw out a couple like things
Sure.
around this. One is I think it's important to recognize that not everyone feels appreciated the same way and recognized the same way. And so even somehow being able to survey our employees and finding out from them, like, what is your workplace love language of love? Is it words of affirmation? Would the notes be more meaningful for you? Is it quality time? Is it acts of service? Like, what are the things, or even just asking them, like, when have you felt appreciated and recognized by administration or by the district? And, you know, what within reason, I mean, I don't like to say within reason, but what within reason would help you to feel even more appreciated or recognized or something along those lines, just to give voice to the staff as well, so that we're not just making assumptions around like what they like. And then the other piece is, I know this came up with something else around a group that doesn't necessarily have access to email or uses email, and I'm just wondering like how, just from like an inclusive perspective, to make sure that all employees get this opportunity to feel included in this space. And I know that, you know, being a former principal, I know that when you do staff appreciation things, you usually try to do it during the lunches, and then you want to go before and after the lunches so that your aides can participate in all the fun things. So just some ideas like around that too. And it doesn't even have to like cost a lot of money. Like I'm not like saying like, hey, let's go and spend a whole bunch of money. But I think it's the intention and some of the traditions. And I think the last thing that I'll mention is I just really love the connection that you're making of like this idea of a culture champion or someone within the school who is exhibiting the core values or the vision of the district. So thank you for, you know, exhibiting this, and here's a story about why that's in the newsletter or whatever the case is. I think that makes a really big difference when you really connect it to your why, of why we are doing the work that we're doing. And thanks for exemplifying that for everyone. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Great.
So thank you.
In addition to that, for the past 5 years, the board and my office has given a gift to all employees for Teacher Appreciation Week. And then when we go to deliver it, last year it was a container, lunch container, and then the high school administration and I and a few other administrators went over and helped out in the kitchen and had a conversation just about what the daily effort is. And I found the personal connection went much further. The gift was kind of cool because they really liked it, but they appreciated it. But just hanging out and talking about what it takes to feed 1,600 kids on a daily basis. And I didn't have my safe serve credentials,
Certifications?
so I was not allowed to do certain things. But just, you know.
Were you allowed to go behind that grill last year?
What's that?
Were you allowed to be behind
I
that
was
grill?
allowed to be behind the grill. The burgers were already cooked. I was
Because
just
that's
heating
coming
them
up
up.
again.
Yeah, and again, just recognizing that like most schools and principals will do
Yes.
a lot of this like work already, and so
Oh,
I think
yeah.
just like helping us to think intentionally as a district, like how do we as a district, as a board, want to support and recognize our folks at a board meeting, and, you know, things along those
Yeah.
lines, through the social media spotlight, you know, Colonial Spotlight or whatever the case might be.
And I know CEA definitely has a social media spotlight that they're spotlighting and teachers and staff members in buildings, just in a, I forget how they're wording it, I'd have to go back and look, but in a, like get to know people that work in our district,
Right.
which is really like nice to see.
Yeah, and the research supports also that it's not these big grandiose things that are the things that
Just
matter.
little
It's
things. Yep.
this constant like depositing in people's emotional bank
Emotional
accounts
bank.
over
Yep.
time
No
that
doubt.
really is what makes a difference.
And I think too, from a parent perspective, there are, throughout all the buildings, from, I mean, I remember when my kids were in elementary school and then the 4 or 5 building, lots of opportunities for kids to recognize and to appreciate, and for families too.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously is stemming from the district as a whole with the different things they put into place in November, I guess, for American Ed Week, and then again in the spring. So as a parent, I always appreciated that
And we just
that
finished
we had the
the,
opportunity, and kids had the opportunity to thank people that work in their buildings.
We just finished the campaign.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, the foundation, yeah, that's good. Yep. Absolutely.
Good with that one?
Friday.
So these are just ideas, and we're just gonna keep brainstorming to see what we can
Yes.
do and what works.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
sounds
think
good.
it will be evolving.
Great.
Okay. Next item on tonight's agenda is exit interviews, and this would be implemented, an exit interview process for exiting employees upon their separation of their employment, whether it was resignation or retirement, in the upcoming 25-26 school year. The circumstances that would surround the parameters of the exit interview would be that it's an optional voluntary exit interview questionnaire provided to every exiting employee. They would have the opportunity to complete the questionnaire if they chose to do so. I particularly like the one that was provided by our solicitor at Fox Rothschild. Employees would choose to complete the questionnaire. They submit it to the director of HR via email, and they would have an opportunity to meet with me in person to discuss their responses. Again, that's not required. They could choose just to participate by filling out the questionnaire and not meeting face-to-face. The questionnaire responses and in-person discussions are completely confidential, and those questionnaires would then be placed in the employee's personnel file for record-keeping purposes, but not to be shared out. Yes.
So if everything's completely confidential, how do we
Yes.
get actionable insight out of the exit interviews?
We could share with you that these are some concerns that have been brought to our attention, but we couldn't discuss specifics about who it was or share with you the actual questionnaire itself, response. So the person would certainly be kept confidential.
But they're not submitting it anonymously, correct?
No,
Okay.
they
so
are
then
not.
how would you know what folder to put it in?
Yeah.
There's
No,
only
no.
like 3 people who would meet disqualification every year, give or take.
I'm sorry?
Potentially.
There's generally like 3 people every year who have not
No,
retired,
We
not.
just have like seven
Retirees.
Yeah.
So this would include retirees as well?
Yes.
Retirees.
So
Okay,
anyone
okay.
running the
Resignations, and it wouldn't just be
district,
teachers, it would
Yeah.
be.
So
I mean,
not-
best practice is to do it by a third party, but I think this is an absolutely great starting point for us to just like begin to pick up trends and patterns
Yes.
on folks and their why. Of,
Yes.
How was your experience with the district and what can we learn from this? And
I thought we were only doing it for people who left for another job. I was like, oh, there's not that many of that.
Right,
Okay.
right,
I mean,
right.
it's not gonna be a lot at any given year because people love the district, except for when we probably get more retirements than we would resignations. I don't know the numbers, but I'm assuming that because people love our district. But I think it's an opportunity for people to be able to share their voice.
Great.
then we can look at trends and patterns over time.
Employees
That
are,
was an ask that I had, so I just want to again say thank you for the follow through on this space.
And I guess too, we'd have to, so that maybe it is less, oh, these are the 3 people that retired, or these are the 7 people that just resigned, like, you know, maybe if it's shared out in January or February, like sort of give 6 months from when,
I see.
you know, the end of the school year, so that it's not getting pinned to specific individuals and people aren't like, oh, well, these
I
were
agree with that.
these were the 3 teachers that just retired and.
Understand, we're not sharing out the specifics of any one interview.
No, no,
It's more
no.
so you're trying to get the insight, and there may be themes across
Right.
that says, very generic, that they may even have ideas on something that they may have experienced and have an idea of how to, an opportunity, let me call that, as an area of opportunity.
Sure.
To say, you know, maybe do this differently, or even a lot of positive feedback. So
Well,
we're not
that's what I was
just
gonna
looking
say,
at it
positive,
as,
yeah.
yeah, it's not just about the areas of opportunity, it's also just general positive feedback too. So
And people-
I wasn't expecting to share out specific people's responses. It's more what those insights were for the administration to know that somebody may not have shared, right? Somebody could be at the district for 20+ years and never share feedback.
Right.
And so it's an opportunity, another like final opportunity to share feedback officially.
Is this all electronic?
The completion of the questionnaire?
Mhm.
Yes,
Is there an option for an in-person discussion?
yes.
Good.
Mhm.
And that would be
Oh, yes,
with you, right, Michelle?
Yes.
That would be, yeah.
yes.
Can you share the one that you said you like from Foxborough?
I absolutely
With
can. I can share it out with you guys.
Who is the target recipient of the feedback? It goes to you, and then you disseminate it to Dr. Christian, do you disseminate it to the district level supervisors, or is it to us? Like, who is kind of the primary person who's supposed to gain and take action items from this feedback?
So I would certainly share with Dr. Christian what some concerns were that were brought to my attention, you
Or
know.
positives.
And positives,
Positives.
positives, negatives, recommendations for changes that employees would like to see. Certainly that information would be shared with them.
We can get high level summaries.
Sure.
It's more to get in the hands of someone.
And I
who's
think putting something out there so that
Yes,
the
so
people
it's gonna be
completing
action.
them know what's gonna be done. So that they feel like, you know, we're not turning it around the next day and sharing it, so that they can be honest
It's awareness.
and forthcoming with their, what they have to share.
Other questions about that item? No? Okay.
Thank you.
The next item on tonight's agenda is I want to be able to share out with our employees, but also with the board, that our upcoming open enrollment will take place this year, April 28th, 2025 through May 16th, 2025, for all changes to go into effect July 1, 2025, and that should read June 30, not 20, 2026. Any changes to our healthcare, medical, dental, and prescription and flexible spending account selections must be made during the open enrollment period, and any employee who waives their healthcare coverage must supply the HR department with proof of alternative healthcare coverage no later than the final date of the open enrollment period to take place on May 16, 2025.
And when does that go out,
So
Michelle?
how- yeah, and how-
When does the notification go out to?
Notification will go out in March.
And how are we notifying everybody of this information?
Well, it certainly goes out via email, posters that are sent out through to each building that are posted in our break room areas. And I will be discussing with Dr. Christian an idea of how we can get word out to employees who don't have a district email, but ensuring that they too receive this information.
You can have built-in level meetings with each of the associations.
Absolutely.
Maybe when they submit it, they get a little prize. A little incentive.
They get a waiver.
Huh?
They get a check.
No, I mean, like,
That's a great incentive.
None of the collective bargaining agreements have a deadline in place, so it'll be very important that if we impose a deadline, that we communicate very clearly via
blinking
email,
lights.
Meetings.
signage, and in-person meetings
With sign-in sheets.
with sign-in sheets.
Yes. And Mike,
A little
you
traveling
said,
roadshow,
Yes, yes.
just visiting and meeting
Visiting
people.
and meeting and talking.
I should mention that that happens every year during open enrollment. Our benefits and support staff manager, Andrea Griffith, who just gave birth to her first baby this past weekend. Very excited for her. But she does do that during open enrollment. She is posted in each building and makes herself available to answer questions to all of our staff during the open enrollment period. And we will continue to do that.
This is the first year of this schedule, correct?
This is the first full year of this schedule, yes. Other questions about the open enrollment? And then last on tonight's agenda, an information item just to share with you that this evening, while our meeting has been taking place, from 5 to 7 p.m., attending as our district representatives at the Montgomery County Education Job Fair was Dr. Melissa Figueroa Douglas and Colleen Techman from the HR department.
Nice.
Okay. Other questions?
No, I just want to acknowledge again and say thank you for putting effort and intention and, ideas to an ask that we had around this, specifically around the employee recognition and the exit interview piece, so just thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my agenda. Mrs. Plant?
Okay, any comments from the board? Any public comment?
Currently none this time.
All right, well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.